Drinking. I was in Las Vegas is what it was, and I was living in an alley and by McDonald's, and I was working in another day labor place. When I get called out, my priority was get a beer or alcohol. And then from there, I had an opportunity to move out to Alabama, be with my niece, and then that didn't work out. It was in a dry county. Can't have an alcoholic in a dry county, so I had to move on. And when I went in Alabama, I was figuring out how to get west. And a man in the truck told me to go through Memphis. And when I got into Memphis, it was at the truck stop, but I was there for 2 or 3 days. I couldn't get out of Memphis. And when I left Alabama, and I just said, well, God, what do we do now? It's all up to you, And even though I was still drinking, I really didn't care, I had no sense of direction. Well, I would say I was leaving Alabama, and I was at a truck stop for more than I should have been. I was homeless at the time. And I had gotten bitten by mosquitoes because I was sleeping outside, and I decided to go to the hospital and see if I can get some type of ointment because I was itching. And from them, I learned where the homeless shelters were. And that's why when I entered the mission, it was eye-opening. It was the numbers, the amount of people that were there, and the opportunity that came. I was unaware of the fact of the program. AC Green was there, and he was running the pre-awareness, and there was an intake interview. And when I went in there, they asked me what my problem was. I like to drink, and I told AC about it, and he told me what the mission does. And I'd never heard of anything, but I figured it was the answer for me. I needed to change a point in my life. It wasn't working. So I went in, humbled myself because I was down to the last dollar where I didn't, not the last dollar, I didn't care what was going to happen to me the next day. I was just existing, so to speak. And I had always been with God in all my life. I was brought up, but I had lost touch with Him in my beliefs. I had relied on Him. And it opened my eyes to it again. You have to earn the right to get into the program. There's a 10-day period. During the program, I became more aware of how I needed to get out of God's way so He could work in my life. What I was trying to do things my way, hoping it was God's will, thinking it was God's will when it was really my will, man being prideful as he is. What I realized I'd learned through all the chapel services I went through and through the pastors and my own personal Bible studies, that in order for Christ to work through me, I have to allow Him to make changes through me and open my eyes to what my way of thinking was, which was a worldly sense, My thinking changed to being more spiritual foods. And it helped me focus on what was really important, which was spiritual food and being humble. How important His Word is to me even to this day. I write self-studies every morning. I continue on the habits that I picked up at the mission, which is with the daily bread I read. They taught me how to be more aware of how God works through your life and how He exposes your imperfections and brings them out to the forefront. The most important thing I've gotten from what I learned in the mission and through the program, besides integrity, is my closeness and my relationship with God. And it's a day-to-day thing, your relationship with God and Jesus. It's not a sugar high, it's not a rush, and it's not always a constant feeling of happiness. You'd like it to be, but it isn't. Christians are made to suffer because through suffering comes sanctification. It's teaching you. That's what I've learned, and it's that integrity and being a man of my word, because That's my worth. When I commit myself to something or say I'm going to do something, I do it. If I can't do it, I say I can't do it. In other words, when I was drinking, I would, say whatever it took to make somebody else happy, and that wasn't working. I've always had good work ethics. They brought out better ones. Financial ethics were better. How to use my money wisely for those programs. When I was towards the end of the program, there was a time when I was put on staff as a shift supervisor at the mission, and then on the weekends I was a kitchen supervisor, and at the same time I was an RA for the Tillman building, and I cooked on the weekends here, and I enjoyed all that activity. I enjoyed giving back, and what a gift that is, and what it is a privilege in order to volunteer your time and to be actively involved in helping others. It's really rewarding, to see others succeed. And in a way, it also helps you feel good about what you're doing too. Because they were giving me so much while I was here with the clothing, feeding, and just shelter. I was grateful. I've never had that in my life, somebody to go ahead and take care of you. But it gave me values for my family. My grandchildren are my most important one to me right now in my life, and my children and their security, and them knowing their words and their individuality to let them grow without hindrance, or prejudice. When I left in 2006, I bought a van here, and it was a used van. It was an adventure. And I took one of the brothers with me who wanted to go out there, and the plan was to eventually, my son-in-law and my son-in-law works for Southwest, and he was going to eventually get transferred out to Boise. And then that way my grandchildren would be there, and we can, start a family, a relationship, my kids would all be around. I drive a dedicated route for Walmart in the Pacific Northwest. I wanted to get into the trucking industry because of the health benefits, and I was getting a little older and I needed a steady income. And I started going online, and I applied for a job, and I was hired on, and I went to their school, and I've been working for them ever since. And by the grace of God, every year I've made a little more money, and I took care of all my credit problems. I'm credit-free, debt-free now, except for my mortgage on my house, which was a big win because I was putting that towards God and wanting to buy a large house so I can make sure that my family, my daughters, and my grandkids would always have a place to live and security. Everybody wants to be remembered, I suppose. But it's family. I love them, and they're important to me. They're my world, and I want them to have a good, fair, good, solid foundation, so that they can blossom to be who they truly are and who God intends them to be. I live a godly life now, so I just instill my example to them, hoping that they'll follow it and see it, and what it is. What a grace and a privilege it is to be able to serve others. Because I think if that's any kind of legacy to leave behind, is that if you're going to stand up like a man, first you have to start on your knees in prayer. And I hope that's what my grandchildren see.